Welcome to Torchbearers by College Esports News. My name is Kenneth Christina, and on this show, we talk with those carrying the flame of college esports at their programs to learn from their expertise in a particular segment of our vast ecosystem. For our premiere episode, I got to talk to Joe Mazzara and Avery Pierce, each known as Squeegee and Avery Does Stuff online, respectively, about their experiences growing alongside the Wichita State Esports program, from their participation as students up through their current full-time roles as Director of Esports and Program Manager, respectively. As a recent graduate who's just made the transition into a full-time college esports role myself, I was excited to hear their perspectives and find the parallels to my own story, and I hope you are too. Here's my conversation with Joe and Avery. Thanks, Joe and Avery, for joining me for this episode. How you doing, Joe?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Avery, how are you doing?
Not too bad.
Good to hear. First question I want to ask, because I know this kind of shapes my context as I look at things. We're recording this over the weekend right now, but you're going into work on Monday. What's the first thing that you're worried about when you walk in that door on Monday? Joe, I'll start with you.
Well, we have a very notorious member of our program named John. Trey John 6 is one of our Smash players. He has created in our temporary facility right now a little corner of his that is completely his. He moved monitors around, so he's got a nice double monitor / standing desk setup that he built with cardboard boxes. So I will be checking to see if those monitors have fallen off those cardboard boxes and make sure they're still functioning.
Avery, how about you?
Oh. In said room, the fan or air conditioning is just non-existent, or it can't keep up with all the PCs we have in there. So hopefully opening the door that we have connected to a classroom and getting air flowing and having a fan going, because it gets hot fast, especially in the Wichita, since it's September, but it still feels like August.
Yeah, airflow very important in the room of a handful of folks and a lot of PCs that tend to get heated up pretty quick. All right, well, good. Little lighthearted question there to get us started. Now, the next question I want to ask all of our guests is, what's your story? And I want to start from the very beginning. Like, how did you even get involved playing video games in the first place? And then how did you make that step into esports and then into collegiate? So, Joe, to you, like, what's your story? What's your background? Where are you coming at this from?
Yeah, so video gaming for me was actually something I got into like late twice. Growing up, my parents were big skeptics. I only convinced them to buy me a console um, because Guitar Hero 2 came out. And I was, I love music and I minored in it in college, and that was kind of my first like, holy cow, like I love playing video games. It was Guitar Hero 2. Next game I owned, Guitar Hero 3. Next game I owned, Rock Band 1. That was my pathway into it. I was super into it. Then when I got into high school, I was an athlete, so I just really didn't have time for that. Um, I also was just moving all over the place because my dad's job. He was an Air Force pilot for 20 years, so that that Guitar Hero journey started in Oklahoma, and then I think Guitar Hero 3 came out right after I moved to New Jersey, and then Rock Band 1 and 2 came out while I was living overseas. So, yeah, that was just a very sporadic mission for me. But I just got really busy with school and sports. I thought that was going to be my pathway. Um, Actually, the first college I went to was for baseball, and that was something that I was pursuing the whole time. Unfortunately, I actually got injured twice, so I lost that competitive sector, which I think actually led to esports for me because I needed that competitive outlet. And I was just kind of clueless. Like, I didn't even really know very much about this. My brother, when I was a kid, used to watch professional CSGO and play it because he was way more connected to that kind of niche than I was. And I was still trying to figure out what it was. So I picked up the drums, as you can see behind me, and was going that route. And then um, when I met my current girlfriend, Desiree, she was actually the one who got me into it. She played League of Legends. and she convinced me to watch. They have season 7 Worlds, the Samsung White versus T1, uh, where the Elder Dragon was flying around the bird's nest in Beijing, and I was like, "Yo, this is really cool." And Faker lost, and I was like, "There's a lot of passion and emotion." I just instantly got connected to that, so I started playing that. Um, Went to a random. I think it was like a tier 2/open League of Legends tournament at Wichita State, and kind of fell in love with it. That was definitely the part of it that I loved the most was the LAN environment and just competing against. I mean that tournament was wild. I think Travis Yang and I had talked about it before. We might have accidentally met at that LAN once because there was just a bunch of community teams and there's also these tier 2 teams like I think Bleed and not Arctic Fox, but there was a couple secondary rosters for LCS teams. It was really cool. Um, but I really sunk my teeth into that. I became interested in playing collegiate. I didn't even know if that was a thing at the time. This was maybe the second year of operation of Sea Star League, so it was very nascent. Um, so I formed a team with Desi and joined the esports club, which at the time was about 10 people. Got to play a couple seasons in that. I have permanent bragging rights over my brother because we got to play his team because he played at K State. We beat him in a game 3 series. But
Always love the sibling rivalry.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was so fun. He solo killed me though, so I'll be like, oh, I beat you back then. He's like, well, yeah, but you beat me, you beat the team, but you didn't beat me. So, um, that was super fun. And then I got interested in just growing on campus and seeing what it becomes. So we started with about 8 people our first semester running the club. I was just a team captain at that time, and by the spring we had 2 League of Legends teams and an Overwatch team. At that point, I was really interested in the administration of the club. In official capacity, we were just a registered steward organization. So I ran for vice president, was elected, worked really hard to get more people into the club. And by that fall, I think we had 45 people with the incoming class. We had 2 Rocket League teams, 2 Overwatch teams, 3 League of Legends teams. So we were going really fast, and I was the one handling all of the registration and match operations on the old Sea Star League website. Um, and by the next spring, we had over 100 members in the club. So, I at that point in that fall, we had 45, and we're running all these teams. Um, Tyler Levesque was doing his master's at Wichita State, and the sport management department had taken an interest in making this an official program. And they reached out to me in that November and offered me the job as the first assistant director of the program, which I took. And we started the program in that January of 2019.
Cool. So really, you're one of the students that's been there since the beginning, and now even beyond your journey as a student, which we'll get into in just a little bit here. Avery, how about you? Where'd you get started with video games, and how'd you get involved now in the competitive side of it?
Yeah. So my start is actually really late. I was a dancer for I danced in college, so 16 years. So that took up most of my time. I didn't really have anything to do with video games until Minecraft came out. I'm aging myself here. Until Minecraft came out, and for my birthday, I was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to sit at home, buy me Minecraft. I'll play. So I was one of the original Minecraft kids, which is interesting to say out loud. And I started moving and going, and I was like, I really like this. And in high school, the person I was dating, kind of in the same realm as Joe, played League of Legends, and I was like, I really like this game. The characters are cool. The art, I'm a big sucker for a good like artistic game. So splash arts were coming out. I was like, this is really cool. I really like these. And I saw an ad for the LCS. Um, I will out myself. I'm a big TSM fangirly. So
Uh-oh.
whenever their like most infamous roster with Bjergsen and Doublelift and Biofrost, like the roster, I was like, these people are really cool. I really like what they're doing. Um, and I watched all their YouTube videos, any like vlogs that they did, any challenges. Um, So that was my first introduction to like esports, and I kind of kept along and watched those. I played very rarely because of time, and I didn't really have the means to. I didn't have a PC. I just had a little laptop that I had a little mouse connected to Bluetooth, so it was a very scuffed setup. I still have a scuffed setup now, but I know what I'm doing. Um, and I got into college. I was in a sorority. I was dancing my freshman year. I didn't really know that esports was a thing. It was the, I guess, official first fall semester for them, so it was still very new. They were still getting their footing, and then COVID happened, and the dance team was kind of not put on pause, but we danced in the stands, and there were about 4 people at a game, and I lost that kind of team connection. And I needed hours for my degree, and they came to me and they're like, "We have esports. We know you're interested. Why don't you talk to Courtney Calder, who was the director at the time, and let's see how we can get you involved." And I joined in head first. I did social media and then moved into kind of more of a leadership role. And then it kind of grew from there to where I am.
Awesome. The way the two of you are talking about it, we were talking a little bit about the timeline ahead of time too, but it sounds like you all had a bunch of different people stepping in to lead the program over that 6-year period. What what did that continuity look like from person to person? How did each person make their impact on the program, or did that person make much of an impact on the program? Was it pretty consistent throughout kind of that entire time? Obviously, the students were mostly the same. Joe, especially with you there, kind of helping out and leading things up, and Avery, you coming along later. So, with as much turnover as there was in that, head position, what does that program continuity look like?
That's a really good question. I think we kind of made a joke by the time I was hired full time that I think I had served as interim director longer than any other director had been director. Um, so that's kind of the continuity, to be honest with you. Tyler and I, when the program first started, I mean, we were so green. We were both just learning as fast as we could. Tyler was not super into esports around the time he started, but he did have connections with the administration. He knew how to do that kind of work, but he got into it. So he pursued esports as a passion. He's still working in the esports industry adjacently today. So we were both just learning everything that we could. I was learning about the collegiate landscape, trying to keep up with um, how much tumult there was at the time in collegiate as people were finding their stuff. This is, when NACE was running their entire league out of a Discord spreadsheet, and C Star League's website crashed every match day. Like nothing was set in stone at the time. This was truly the Wild West of collegiate esports. Um, but to Tyler's credit, like I said, I mean, all of the directors of the program have been amazing mentors and allow us to take uh, ownership of the parts of the program that we were working in and really sink our teeth into it. But yeah, Tyler and I were just learning as much as we could and trying to figure out what it meant to be a part of esports at Wichita State. When Courtney was here is when we started to see like the separation of roles a lot more, like what it meant to be the assistant director, what it meant to be the director. This is where I kind of just took over everything that was internal operations. So competitions, match days, player operations, finding people like Avery to work for the program and building that leadership group. Um, and then she was the person facing the public, the person facing the administrators again, and that kind of bifurcation existed pretty much all the way up until this point, and even still kind of exists now. Because I think that separation of responsibilities is something that's really healthy for the people running the program. Because if I had to do all of that stuff I used to be doing and the stuff I'm doing today, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably be in
And
some
and
infirmary
16
room.
credit hours, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was all while I was a full-time student. Avery too, she was a full-time student. We were both masters and students as well. And over the last couple of years, and even now, like I'm a student again. So that bifurcation and separation of responsibilities is something that really evolved with Courtney and over the course of COVID too. Um, and then when Travis was here, um, I think I kind of went back into like learning mode really, because he was so willing to involve me in conversations that he was having in kind of that other part of um, that bifurcation where I was doing all the competition and internal operations stuff, but I was attending all these meetings with Travis and Avery as well. We get to learn a little bit more about that side of things. Obviously, not being an undergraduate student allows you kind of the privilege of sitting in some other places, sitting in some rooms that you couldn't be in before. So that was another big learning step, um, which I mean, Travis just made that super enjoyable. And like I said, all of the directors they brought something different to the table, which is fantastic, because I got to learn different leadership styles. Was learning different parts of the work, and they were all fantastic mentors.
It sounds like one thing built on top of the next, right? To kind of ultimately build this program where it is today. So that continuity existed in the building and the consistency, even of the student leadership. Avery, I don't know what you can kind of add to that conversation, maybe from your perspective, coming in maybe a little bit later and seeing that growth over time.
Yeah, so I came in when Courtney was acting director, so I missed the entire Tyler era. So I came in and I could see that there was a little bit more of an administrative buy-in with Courtney being there, since she was kind of that front facing, going out talking to people. And I could see that there was a little bit more of like a buzz in the air from the administrators. The students were always there, they were always ready to game. But the talks of new facilities or moving, like those all kind of happened whenever I was first joining. And then whenever Joe took over as interim, we were kind of in that weird middle period where we were still both students, so administrative work was kind of hard because we didn't really have the access and all that kind of stuff. And then whenever hiring Travis, I got to, thanks to Joe and the rest of the team, be involved in a hiring process, which in higher ed is a very interesting thing. Um, and whenever Travis came in, he kind of went full uh, you do it mode in a good way. He wanted us to get as much hands-on experience as we could possibly get, kind of grab at whatever we wanted. And now with Joe taking over, that idea is still there, but as a staff member, I'm passing it on to the students below us. So now creating those applied learning opportunities that Travis started, uh, and making sure that students still get the experience that they got or they get that I got. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, big thing for me too, right? Is okay, I got all these experiences, but I want to be able to share that now with the next group of folks that are coming up, and they're interested. Because I know that my experiences through my whole esports journey have been very formative along the way. But I liked what you said a little bit earlier about, there's no full time staff support. And here you are, the group of students that's just trying to, batten down the hatches, hold down the ship, keep her together until somebody else comes along. But Joe, I imagine for you, that experience really led towards you being incredibly well prepared, I assume, for stepping into that, full-time director role where you are now.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing too is working with students and the way that we structured the student leadership in our program. I did so much work with them on like a weekly basis that it was like, oh, okay, well, Travis is leaving. I would never say it explicitly at the time. I kind of danced around it, but they were like, well, Joe's gonna be director. It's no problem. So that turnover, at least like from the personnel standpoint, was very easy, and that's a credit to the students and the buy-in that they've had to the program and the trust they've had on us to kind of lead it in the direction that they know that we'll try to put the program in the best spot that we can. But that from that aspect, it wasn't a challenge at all. I think that they didn't even think twice about it. I was sweating bullets, like, oh my God, I'm not even going to say it out loud. Anything could happen until it happens. So um, yeah, that was a fun time. But yeah, but I mean, the student leadership in our program, like they're such fantastic people. We graduated 6 seniors last year, I believe, and 4 or 5 of those were 4-year students of the program. That was really the first time that had happened in our program. So the timing of that was rather serendipitous. So I got to spend my my first semester as really like the full interim director in the most official capacity I've been with those students. And to their credit, I mean, they helped me so much. It's really nice to have students that just had invested so much of their personal time, so much of their headspace to the program, and they knew what they were doing. I mean, those are very low managerial investment students at that point, and yeah, they were able to take stuff off my plate because um, I know I mentioned this earlier in the pre-recording, but the trend was I would become interim director and something awful would happen. So the first time it was COVID. Oh no, sorry. The second time was COVID. This time, like I think maybe the week or second week after Travis had left, I was at a tournament in Cincinnati, and the building that our esports programs room is flooded the basement. Um, so we've been in a temporary facility since then. We're hoping to be back there in the spring, but yeah, that was an entire journey that we're still going through. So we're keeping up with the trend. Hopefully,
Well, hey, the hope is that you won't be interim director again,
yeah,
right?
there we
So
go.
that won't happen.
No more disasters. There'll be no more earthquakes in California. Like this is a landmark event for the country and even the world, maybe. Um, but yeah, no, and then having people like Avery in the program too, who when I was in Cincinnati and our Rocket League team's competing, she's back in Wichita and she's going to emergency meetings. Like having somebody that's like that really like keystone person for the program, just being able to support me has been fantastic. And I trust Avery with so much of the program's operations, just for how long we've worked together, the classes we've taken together. Like, I have full faith in her to do a great job at anything that she decides to pursue within the program. So that's been really the most pivotal part is just student leadership and the other leadership from staff. Like you said, to batten down the hatches, really.
Uh, So Avery, what's that kind of relationship been working with a classmate, someone you've known for a long time, now also your boss, right? What's the kind of that relationship been like? And then also want to go back as well, circle back around to the student leadership idea. And I know for me, especially as I'm stepping into my first time role, at a new institution, completely new to me, I'm relying very heavily on my student leaders and that two-way street to figure out kind of what's what around campus. What's that kind of experience been like for you as well?
Yeah, so it's funny. Joe and I make the joke. We kind of are able to read each other's minds at this point. Um, just because we've been working together for so long, we have taken those classes together that we are at the point where we don't even, he can ask me something and I'll be like, I know exactly what you need, and then go and do it. So that has been really nice because it also has transferred into just daily life of making jokes, or we'd make eye contact during a random experience and just start laughing. Like it's gotten to the point where we are both so comfortable with how each other work, that it's been kind of an easy transition. It's still a little weird that he's my boss now because we used to be on an even playing field and now it's a little bit different. Um, but it's not weird in a bad way. It's just a learning experience for both of us since it is both our first full time role in esports and just in general. And I think part of that is because we are both applied learning students. Circling back to it, we are in the College of Applied Studies, so that is one of the forefronts of what we do as a program. And those students are hungry. They come to us and they're like, we want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to bring our social media percentage up by 2%. Like, they have goals. And it's been a really fun experience and a really big blessing to be able to say, yeah, go do it. Here's the resources. Here's who you need to talk to. Um, and be able to see them grow. Most of our applied learning students now have been with the program for a while. So it's been fun to see them go from this shy, timid person who doesn't really want to go out and speak just because they don't know what they're doing, per se, to now be able to take the initiative and go and say, I want to do this and this and this. Who are the resources I need to talk to? Who are the connections? And it reminds me of what I went through, where I was this shy, timid person saying, okay, I'll post this Instagram story. What do you think? Please tell me everything you want. Do I need to change the font? Do I need to change the filter, like all of that, to now being the person that gets asked those questions. It's been a really cool experience to see that and be able to kind of be on the other side of it.
Take your style to the next level with college esports news merch. Whether you're gaming, cheering on your favorite team, just hanging out, or recording a podcast episode, we've got you covered. From fire jerseys to sleek, comfortable tees perfect for any occasion, you too can become a torchbearer. Plus, when you use the code CEN at checkout, you'll get 5% off your order site wide. Don't forget to snap a pic and tag College E News on X with your new gear. We might even feature you on our socials. Our execs look fire in their CEN merch, and we know you will too. Visit acquire.ca/CEN to grab yourself some college esports news merch. Again, that is AKQUIRE.ca/CEN. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, that's the bulk of it, right? Is still providing those opportunities for students that are coming to the program. I suppose I should have asked to clarify earlier. It sounds like you all are more like housed in the academic side of things. Is that exactly where you fall under?
Yeah, so that's a relatively like new development for the program. We used to be under campus rec when the program started, so we were kind of classified in the same vein as the rowing, bowling, and shooting clubs at Wichita State. Which credit to the bowling program because
Woo!
they're like the Alabama of bowling, and that's something that not a lot of people know about Wichita State. If you go down to our bowling alley,
Yeah.
it's like half a wall of national championship trophies. And we had like bowling YouTuber kids come here for like recruiting visits, like with camera crews and stuff. It's insane.
No joke. Bowling's no joke.
No,
I
it's
was
no
there. I
joke.
was a competitive bowler for 4 years in high school, so I know.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. No, well, being a military kid growing up, living on base, like that was like the only thing I could do sometimes. So I was in
There you
a
go.
lot of bowling leagues. So I feel you on that. Bowling's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so we were in campus rec. When we made the move over to our current flooded space, in the Corbin Education Center, we also shifted the program to the College of Applied Studies, which is where sport management program is housed, as well as the education school. So we get to work with like higher ed administrators in the purest sense of the word, and sport management educators. Um, so like there's a lot of cool tie-ins there. For example, um, our associate dean, uh, Dr. Stolt, he is the university's representative to the American Conference. And so he works a lot with athletics and talking about mentorship and like knowing best practices and fantastic advice. Like he's got that on lock. And Dr. Mark Vermillion and Dr. Ross and Dr. Kim from Sport Management, they've been huge assets to all of our student leadership and our development specifically. Like if we ever have a question about anything, like those are the people we go to, and those are the people that have been fighting for the program and helping us, create new policy for the program as well as like just leadership initiatives. Um, Dr. Vermillion and I had long conversations about, hey, this is what I want to do with the student leadership of the program and captainship, and this is what I want it to look like for teams. And they've been amazing sounding boards and just offering more input on our ideas than offering their own ideas, which is a very key thing I think when it comes to mentorship. But it does allow us to interface with all of the silos that were kind of on campus, especially in the beginning of the program. Wichita State. Yeah, I moved to Wichita in 2012, which I think was a really big year for the city. I didn't know what to expect. I was moving here from overseas, um, and I was like, well, I haven't lived anywhere more than 2 years. My dad's probably going to retire here, so this is kind of my adoptive hometown. Um, I didn't think I was going to go to college here. I grew up during the uh, Wichita State's highest peak in basketball when they made it to the Final Four, and the teams of Fred VanVleet and Ron Baker. And I still cheer for Fred VanVleet, even though I don't watch the NBA. He's doing really cool stuff. Um, but it was a really unique environment like that. And I was kind of mind blown at the time because Wichita State had almost always been, since like the 80s, a commuter school. Um, that was something that they were working really, really hard to change over the last decade. Was that evolution of the school from hey, this is a Wichita commuter school. If you live in Wichita surrounding area, this is probably the college you're going to go to, unless you're an aerospace engineering student. Then you're probably coming from all over the state. Over the last decade, they've sunk so many resources into changing that and becoming that more like traditional D1. They're always touting now that like we're like the biggest transfer destination I think in the Midwest. And the environment and the ethos of the entire university has changed so much from when I graduated high school in 2014 to now. And that's changed a lot for our program even over the last half decade. Um, that those remnants and artifacts of being a community school still really existed in the first couple of years of the program. Player buy-in was tough to manage because yeah, they wanted to be here, they wanted to compete. Didn't always want to drive to the university for matches. They didn't spend a lot of time in our room, and that's probably the complete opposite now. And that's a credit to the university. But being tied so closely into an academic college, you have a better pulse on those changes now. I think that was something that was like, why is this happening? Why is this happening with students? And watching those trends change is something that we can better manage being a part of an academic institution. Um, that being said, that's also been something that's changed a lot of how the university's interfaces with it itself. A lot of the colleges being commuter school, they were worried about, just their own students and managing their own programs like engineering. And they never really touched business. Business never touched geology, and they didn't have a reason to at the time. Now everything is a lot more interconnected. So being an academic at college allows us to um, exploit's not the word I'm looking for, but it's the word I'm going to use. Exploit those new networks that exist at the university, and there's a lot more interplay between us and the engineering school and the business school, and allows us to use those resources to market to students, to appeal to students, to let everybody know what we're doing, and vice versa. We'll go out and do anything that the business school wants us to do or engineering school wants us to do, just because it's there for students.
Avery, how has that, pulling everyone together kind of been? I imagine you front and center of that as kind of more internal operations, community building, that sort of thing. How now are you able to leverage those connections and get the foot in the door to other places on campus and bring students who might be interested but don't know that you exist to the program?
Yeah, so a lot of what we do on campus is a lot of tabling, involvement fairs, that kind of stuff. Just getting our name out there to begin with is one of the biggest key factors to pull all those students in. We'll have students from dental hygiene come and talk to us. We're like, hey, do you play? And they're like, yeah, but I have no time to. And we're like, well, we're still here. If you ever want to get involved, we're around. If you ever need community service hours, anything. So that's a big part of it. Open tryouts is also a big part of it. Because it's no required college, maybe a required rank, but it's we don't even know what college they're part of until after they try out and give all that information. So it's kind of cool to see where our reach is in that kind of perspective. And then another one is our activations with McDonald's. We're a part of McDonald's Gaming Southern Plains. So they like us to go and activate on campus. So we try to do it in buildings like the business building, which is our newest, most renovated, the fanciest setup. We go and set a table up and play Super Smash Brothers in the lobby. Or we go to the Heskett Center, which is our campus rec building, and we host game nights. Kind of just pulling in as many buildings and as many people as possible and getting our name out there. They don't have to play, and they're like, I don't play games. I was like, well, I don't either. I play Teamfight Tactics in my free time. Like, that is the only game I'll touch. I was like, I don't either, but you can still get involved by being a team manager, or if you like social media, hey, we've got a big social media team. Come and join. They'll teach you the ropes, and you'll be able to run a tier 2 Twitter by the end of it. So it's one of those where appealing to those students and being able to be on all parts of campus while also pulling in gaming, but more of the applied learning side has been a big part of my job and a big part of the reach that we.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I imagine the way that the esports program pulls in those students and helps engage those are largely led by some of the maybe strategic priorities that the higher administration even has for the entire university as a whole. And Joe, I imagine you kind of were thinking through that as you get kind of gave some of your last answers. So I got kind of double header question for you here. One, how does esports fit into your university's kind of strategic mission right now? And then to follow up on that, what kind of relationship have you built up with the upper administration of your university? Is that something that you started making a little bit of a connection as a student and now, have even strengthened that, or something you really only got to do when you got hired full time?
Yeah, no. So when they started the program, I had met all of these people that had titles that were just so lofty that I couldn't even understand them at the time. It was like a Lovecraftian, looking into the eye of the universe. Like, what do these people do? Oh my God, they must be the busiest people on the planet. But when we started the program, the dean of the College of Applied Studies was Dr. Shirley Lefevre. Um, I think a year and a half later, she became the provost, and that was really pivotal for I think the sustenance of our resources, especially in those formative years. But since this was an initiative of the late President Bardo, um, before he passed, this was something that he wanted as a student initiative to push WSU towards that non-commuter school ethos. It's something that he felt was important. It was tech adjacent, and being a very engineering forward, business forward school was something that he felt was necessary to keep up. And we were the first D1 program in Kansas to have an official esports program as a result of that. But we've also been seated in a spot where the administration has always seen this as important, and I think that we've just kind of crossed that line now where um, our job is no longer to educate people what esports is. Our job is to maximize what esports is on campus. And that shift is really key, because I used to, I still do, honestly, but when I'm around town on the weekends, I'll wear my jerseys out, um, for the reason of being a walking billboard, but also I went to the mall yesterday with one of the old jerseys on. Um, I was in my multifunctional outfit because we had an event in the morning, and then I went to the gym, and then I went to the mall right away. So I had my jersey on, and people just come up and ask me questions all the time um, about the program, and it's never what is esports. It's not that. It's how can I get involved. So that ethos has really changed. We're pretty established in at least the city, and definitely at Wichita State. Um, but that's been something that is a joy to work with, and getting to know these people while I was an undergrad, to hit the second part of your question, while I was undergrad, and then have that relationship now for half a decade with these upper administrators, and the understanding and scope of what our program actually does is the next focus. Like, the numbers are starting to become more important. It's not what is League of Legends. It's okay. How many students in the program? How many people have filled out the recruiting survey? What's the next step? Over the years, we've really started to leapfrog in certain sectors with our resources. So it kind of was like, okay, we got a room now, and that was the first step. And that's like, okay, we have 7 PCs, and then the leapfrog for that was, okay, we have Joe's getting paid now, and hey, we have the esports hub now, and the next leapfrog was like, do we, what do we do with our student workers? Do we start a broadcast setup? And then the next leapfrog was, hey, we need a bigger space, we need more resources. So that's kind of the things that we've been able to do with those relationship is like, hey, 2 years ago when we talked, this is where we're at. This is where we're at now. How do we push our resources and our program to that next step? And the administration has always been super receptive of that. They completely understand. They see it as a positive sign of growth. And I think that's another really important thing is like, it's not like, hey, whoa, you got 50 kids in the program now, you might want to pull back. It's no, it's like, how do we accommodate the growth of this program, which I think is a very different mindset from the other.
Yeah, and you can tell the change, right?
Yeah.
In how that thought process goes. Avery, I'm wondering if you feel that when you're interacting with the students, right, and when you're going out and trying to spread the word to people who might not be much the wiser that this esports thing exists, do you feel that you're continually having to try to educate as part of those marketing materials? Like, what is this? Why should I care? Or do you feel like, hey, we exist is good enough and people get it at this point in your community?
Oh. So I think that's kind of a two-part question. The students on campus are starting to get it a little bit more. They'll walk up and some of them will be like, "What is this?" Or they'll see Super Smash Brothers and they're like, "I love this game. Let me play," like kind of deal. So students and like faculty and staff are starting to get it a little bit more. On the flip side, the community in Wichita understands but still is a little bit skeptical. Wichita as a whole is relatively an older population, so it's a lot of families, a lot of people settling down. Um, so it's a lot of educating parents. I laugh because yesterday we were at a event. It's Kansas Best Robotics. It's where students come in, they are given a prompt to build a robot, and then they compete over the course of the next 8 weeks, building that robot, creating a team aspect, doing tasks and that kind of stuff. And I had a parent come up to me and go, "I keep telling my son to stop playing video games, but this is a thing." And we're like, "Yes, it is a thing." She goes, "So how do I help him do this?" Because she's like, "I tell him to stop because it's gonna rot his brain." And I was like, "It doesn't." I was like, "I'm still here. I'm working in it." I was like, "We're both walking facts that it does not do anything of what you were told 20 years ago." Um, so she asked me, she was like, "How do I get my son involved?" I High schools in in the Wichita school district all have esports, but he was homeschooled. So I was like, "We have a local every Friday for Super Smash Brothers. Take him there. It's $5. Like it starts at 7. It'll give him a community. Our players plus players of the community are there to teach him and help him and kind of help him grow. And it's just a way to see that there is a bigger piece of video games than just playing all the time." And it was interesting because she was just like, "Oh," she was like, "And you can get scholarships for it?" I was like, "Yeah, most schools now are offering scholarships." I was like, "We do, schools in the area do." So I was like, there's an extra piece to it outside of just playing video games for fun. And I think I kind of blew her mind a little bit because she was like, "I have never thought of this as something that you can do for the future." I was like, "Yeah, you can work on it, work in it, you can play in it, like you can do kind of anything you want." And she walked away, and I was like, that's the narrative now is becoming more exciting because parents are like, "Oh, you can do it." And that's my favorite part about being in the community about this job is that people are understanding you can do it and what the holds.
And that's the whole point. That's why we're the torchbearers, carrying that flame and helping other folks continue to see the light, the same one that we see in our students. We know that carrying the flame at your institution can sometimes be an incredibly daunting task. You need to find the right partner for your program's needs, and our sponsors of this episode are here to help. Playfly College Esports offers premier competitions for all levels of play, scholarship prizing, e commerce solutions, marketing support, and more to over 700 colleges in North America. Watch your favorite games streamed live on their Twitch channel at twitch.tv/playflygg and email esports@playfly.com to elevate your collegiate esports experience. Thanks so much to Playfly College Esports for sponsoring this episode of Torchbearers. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Joe and Avery. Wanted to give kind of a summary question. I got a couple more, but kind of to close our formal discussion here. If you would have one piece of advice to a college student, student leader, incredibly dedicated, who's looking to make the next step into becoming that full-time program staff person, what advice would you give to that student, that was in your shoes not too long ago, in my shoes not too long ago? Joe, I'll start with you here.
I think the biggest thing, and this comes from just my lived experience with anything that you want to do. If you're passionate about it, you have to make it happen. You can't wait for somebody to say, "Oh, this is okay." I mean, I'm not saying break any rules. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to force it forward. Um, I've done a lot of things in my life that were kind of soft, existed on the fringes of what is considered polite society, I guess. Um, and I think one of the things that prepared me to be a student lead for the club was being in bands. As a drummer, always in demand. I played in some bands around town. I really like heavy metal, and heavy metal drumming is really fun. And what I learned from those groups is like, if you want to have regular practices for a band, you have to force it forward. You have to start trying to convince people, hey, this is good use of your time. Luckily, there's a lot of passionate musicians in Wichita. The DIY scene here is awesome. So that was never a huge issue. But I mean, I saw it happen with other bands and whatnot. That I took that experience to the club, which was really, I mean, um, I saw a vision for how I wanted the club to be. As vice president and president, I was just making it happen. I didn't care about, we had a budget of I think $1,000 when I was the student leader. Like that didn't even matter. Like that was a non-factor, because we wanted to make esports happen at Wichita State. So anything that we could do to grow the community, grow our teams, have them, do well in competition, participate in these community supported events. Um, you know, you can just do it. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of passion. I'm not sure that I would ever want to, in my old age of 28, run a student club at this point in my life because it is a lot of work. And I have a lot of respect for the people who still do it. And I see some of the student clubs out there that are the size that they are. And I'm just mind blown at the amount of work that those students get done while pursuing. I don't know. All student leaders are, some crazy degree too. It's never simple. They're like pre-med students or whatever it is. So a lot of credit to you guys. My heart's out to you. I hope you all get sponsored by energy drink companies or something. Um, but yeah, I would say don't even think about things like if you have a solid vision for what you want esports to be at your university, even if there is a staff member already at the university, I'm sure that they're more than willing to have a conversation with you about whatever the initiative here is, but they're going to ask you to take ownership of it. And to all of the things that we've already talked about, I think that's the ethos that Avery and I both bring to the program is, if you want something, we'll give you the resources to make it happen. And that's the words that Avery used earlier. And I really think that's true. Um, Half the reason that we have a Call of Duty program at Wichita State is because we had a kid named Jake Kurtz who, he just showed up in our room one day when he was a sophomore. He's like, hey, I play Halo. I'm like Onyx in Halo. And this is right when Infinite came. He's like, I want a Halo team. I was like, all right, go find 3 people that you can play with and bring them back. He couldn't, but he played Call of Duty. I was like, hey, I want this. I was like, all right, teach me, like tell me what you want. Call of Duty, and especially competitive Call of Duty, in this format is not my area of expertise. You're gonna have to help me out. And to his credit, like he put in the time, he brought me the resources, he brought me the knowledge to make it happen. And it's the same with social media, it's the same with broadcast, it's the same with your student clubs. And that's probably the drum that I would beat on for anybody.
Awesome. Avery, how about you? One piece of advice you want to give to someone who is in your shoes right now?
Oh. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just do you. I that kind of pulls from the fact that I was in dance in a very different sector of athletics, kind of a different mindset, if you will. And I was also doing esports, and people were like, "What are you doing? What is this? Like, how are you getting involved with this? What are the people like?" Like, they just were kind of dumbfounded that I was like, "Yeah, I want to be in esports. I want to do competitive video games." And I think that's just a mindset that I've had my entire life. It's just don't care about everybody else. Do what you want to do, and that can go with projects. That can go with being a part of different initiatives. Like, it's broad, but it touches on so many different points of life.
Awesome. All right. This is going to be our consistent closing question of every episode. If you could snap your finger and change one thing about collegiate esports, what would that one thing be? Joe, we'll start with you.
Oh man.
Snap your finger, one thing changes.
um, God, I think that maybe I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not. I don't think it
Go for
is.
it.
I don't think it
Go
is.
for it.
I think that leagues need to do a better job at stewardship of the onus they put on directors to do their job. Um, so much of league administration, number one, a lot of the league administrators are fantastic and they do a lot of work. And that's not necessarily my point, and it's not a detracting point. I think it's something that doesn't exist now, is the onus that's put on us as directors to manage everything from our students' eligibility to their match days to their competitions to reporting scores to everything. There needs to be a little bit more arbitrage of what our responsibility is when it comes to the regular operations of competition and the requirements set forward by the league. I would love for leagues to do a better job of being the stewards of their own requirements, for example. Um, and this is just one example, and it's not meant to take a shot at anybody, but NACE, if you know, they require ITCs to be signed by all students as just a agreement like hey, that says, hey, I'm going to be competing for this university in this year. And prior to that, it was kind of just, hey, have your students sign this. You're responsible for it, and keep it on hand. And it was also restrictive to transfers and who you could talk to and who you couldn't. And I think that, for example, if a league is to require something like that, they should be the ones who are the stewards of that information and make it easily accessible to other programs in that sector. Because, like simply put, I think there's a bit of an arms race right now going on with the leagues, um, and I think the ones that will end out on top are the ones that make directors' lives easier. Because it's just a big ask for a lot of directors right now. Like, we all wear so many hats, and I'm sure that people in other jobs wear a lot of hats too. But the time investment for us is pretty high already, and when you create more work for directors, it might be untenable for them.
We'll talk more in future Torchbearers episodes about some of the league stuff going on. Very interesting topics there, and a lot of problems to end up solving in terms of what we want of the grand collegiate ecosystem. Avery, to you, snap your fingers. One thing changes. What is it?
Oh, I should have been thinking a little bit harder. I think one thing that I wish would change, and it's probably going to be more a progressive change, and I might have some influences outside telling me these things, but I wish there was a little bit more focus on the like broadcast and production side of sports. It's slowly growing, I will say that, but a lot of what they focused on now is competition, which is the root of all of it. But there's this whole other unexplored side and maybe more of a universal side that a lot of schools are trying to get into, are the kings and queens of. Like, it's a area that needs a little bit more focus and exploitation than the competition side, because without broadcast, parents can't watch, uh university administrators can't watch, because we have some that come in and watch some of our broadcasts and they're like, hey, are you streaming? We want to watch. So I just think being able to focus more on like at the broadcast and production side of it will not only help the competition, because students, from what we've seen, students compete better because they're under pressure of being on screen. Kind of like in a LAN environment as well. And it also gives that applied learning part to it. Because most of our broadcast students, casters, production, like behind the scenes, are all students. So being able to focus on that and give it more of the spotlight that it needs, I would snap my fingers and hope that that would be a little bit more of a focus area.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all about continuing to, that's another avenue to provide more students more opportunities, right? Get them involved in terms of what that broadcast looks like, what does behind the scenes look like. And for me, I wish there were even more opportunities for college students, college volunteers to go on and cast for other leagues and go on to the next step, make that easier. 'Cause that's very difficult to pull off by yourself. But anyway, want to give a second for closing thoughts, other shout outs, things we might have missed along the way. Whatever you want to say now, the floor is yours, Joe. I'll start with you.
Oh, I mean, I hope this is self-evident, everything I said so far, but um, my job is impossible without all of the previous directors that were at Wichita State. Their mentorship was uh, illuminating, I think is the best word. But also the university administrators at Wichita State, other folks in the industry who have reached out to me to mentor or for mentorship, because I think that teaching is a skill, and having the faith in me to allow me to practice is something that um, is awesome. I always love helping people in the industry um, that are looking to do what I did, really, because the people are still in those phases. And then just the students in our program. I mean, I always make a joke when I'm recruiting, like, hey, I wouldn't want to recruit anybody that I wouldn't want to spend 30 hours a week with, because that's truly the amount of time that we spend together. Um, they're just such fantastic people, and they are the reason that when I'm sitting at my desk with my laptop stressing out over paperwork and stuff, they come remind me why I do what I do. So yeah.
Awesome, Avery. You, other shout outs, last people you want to thank.
Yeah. So my shout outs are to Dr. Lefevre, Dr. Hall, uh, Dean Friend, any administrator who has had any sort of hand in our program. I want to thank them personally just because they gave me really the runway to have a job in the area that I love. And all of the sport management professors, anybody who has had any sort of hand in this program, I want to thank them because they are the reason Joe and I are both here. And I am so super thankful for them and the opportunity that they have given us and the students in the program. Because students are a lot, but they are they are worth it.
They are well worth it. On that note, Joe and Avery, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you.
You just listened to Torchbearers by College Esports News. We'd like to thank our sponsor of this episode, Playfly College Esports, one last time for their support. Playfly College Esports offers premier competitions for all levels of play, scholarship prizing, e-commerce solutions, marketing support, and more to over 700 colleges in North America. Watch our favorite games streamed live on their Twitch channel at twitch.tv/playflygg and email esports@playfly.com to elevate your collegiate esports experience. In other supporting roles this episode, Jared Vanderweel is our project manager, Ashton Lewis is our graphic designer, V Tran is our editor, Sheridan Shea helped record this episode, and Derek Santiago is creative director of CEN. Be sure to follow us on X, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram to stay up to date on all things college esports, and check out our website at collegeesportsnews.org. Thanks for listening, and keep carrying the flame.